Good morning, Wagon Racing Channel. Welcome back. So today we're going to start knocking out some of the stuff we need to do to actually drive Project Blitz. Now, what I mean by that is last night we got the clutch bled line put in and we actually have full clutch. Cody dropped off the drive shaft this morning at our drive shaft center and we're talking about probably midweek getting it back. What else is left? We need a throttle cable, so we're going to work on that. But today we're going to do something fun. We're going to work on putting that hood on. So there's a few steps that have to happen for us to do that. We'll get into that in a moment, but that's our plan for the day. Nice, short, fun project, and we're going to try and match the patina that's on the rest of the car into a faux patina on the fiberglass hood. For those of you that haven't subscribed, it's because you're made out of weakness. Subscribe now. First things first, we need to go ahead and get the structure cut out of the original hood. It's designed to work as kind of a partnership where that skin goes on this structuring and it should line up exactly where it was because we already worked on getting the frame lined up. So we're gonna have to cut the skin off of this hood and epoxy it into that hood. So we're gonna start with that. There it is. We have our fiberglass L88 opal part source hood, and this is the original structure out of the Opel GT. Now minus the part that we had to cut out previously for our turbo. So we got everything kind of clamped in place right now, and everything's epoxied down. It's looking pretty good. And then over here, we have all of our paint match colors that we went and splotch matched to the original colors on the Opel so we can try and paint match it.
As much as we don't want to faux patina the hood, it'll look better than just being black. If we just shoot it black over the gel coat, it's not going to look good. So we're trying to make it as true to the rest of the car as we can and leave it at that.
The double-edged sword here is if we can make this hood on fiberglass look close enough to the original patina on the car, which is real, and just been reduced from the many layers of paint back to the original. If we can make this look that close, people will question if that's real patina even more often than they already do, which is, I mean, it's good and bad.
Whatever. It's good and bad.
That means we did a really good job, but they're going to think that's fake and it's not. So who cares?
Whatever.
Either way, it'll look dope.
Whatever.
So we're going to try and make this look like that, but we got to start with gluing this all down. So we're going to wait for this to tack up and then try and hang it. All right, Monday night, we're gonna hit it again. We ran out of time on Saturday because it actually took a bit longer than we thought to actually de-skin the hood and then trying to get it lined up onto the little frame and everything. I mean, it took a lot longer than we thought. And the cut itself isn't lining up where we thought the template was gonna be, so we're having to go and close the hood a little bit, trim a little bit, close the hood a little bit, and trim a little bit. So super tedious, and we'll show you when we get something.
Last update for the night. So you know we've been de-skinning and re-skinning, pulling the structure out of the existing OE Opel hood, and we have the L88 hood that we've been working on for the last 2 days. We're done with it for now, kind of ish. We're almost there. There's still more to do, but this is where she sits with a full hole cut for the turbo. As you can see, we do have a little gap around. It's enough for a little bit of movement and still leaves us a little bit of room for some of the rougher edges to come in here and straighten those out, make them nice and pretty. But for now, for tonight, that's it. We still have arrow catches that are going to come into the backside, those hood latches there. And for trying to make a faux patina, we've got an assortment of stuff that we're going to do, basically taking it from the bare metal underneath to a thin layer of rust that is there, the yellows, with a small layer of primer in between, and then ultimately red. Now you might be asking yourself, why red? Well, as you know, we do have some red left that I still got to burn out of the yellow, and there's some red that's still stuck in the yellow that I will never get out unless I really burn through it pretty hard. So we're going to try to faux patina this thing, make it match as close as we humanly can to the rest of the car. because that's what we want to do. Thoughts, D?
This was definitely more of a challenge than I anticipated. My enthusiasm to cut the hood because it was going to be a big dramatic look on the car and everything kind of dwindled after like the 10th hour. It was a real test of patience. However, it is totally worth it. It looks awesome, and I'm sure that once we get that faux patina on there so that it matches the rest of the car, it's going to be exactly what we were envisioning. So worth it, but it was not as much fun as I was hoping it would be.
Yeah, it's been quite the process, and I know some of you are gonna hate me for this, but it's already cut. There's nothing else I can do about it. This is what we wanted for this car to be. This is what we wanted it to look like. And the good news is, about 15 minutes down the road, the mold for this hood still sits in its perfect condition. So you can always have one made by Todd if you really feel like it. But the hole's already cut, guys, so there's no going back at this one.
Tuesday, we have something exciting. Cody, show them what you got.
Oh! This is a front stub shaft. So, Miata slip yoke, Miata up to about here, where we had them cut it down to size and throw a plate with a U-joint on it that's the right size to fit our carrier bearing U-joint clamp. So, that's it. All of about 10 1/4 or so inches from there to there. But that's her. That is one of the final pieces to getting this thing to drive.
So we're going to go ahead and start working on that. We got to try and get these Aerotech latches installed. They're going to be a little bit tedious. Hopefully this is going to be the last of the big bulky things we have to do with this hood. Then we can be done with that and move on to something a little more productive and less cosmetic. There we have it, ladies and gents. Aero catch latches on the L88 hood. They were a little bit more of a pain in the neck than we had hoped because of the steel and then fiberglass and the height of everything in the engine bay, but we managed to get them done.
They were a pain in the butt, but they could have been worse. They could have been worse, honestly.
All told, ingenuity prevailed.
Yep.
Cody did a great job trimming everything up. So now you just pop that guy, and that releases this enormous center pin. So there's absolutely no way that thing's coming up. And then flip the hood up. There's the interior there, so we'll get all this all cleaned up, and then they come in down here onto these metal shafts, and that's it. We now have hood latches that are certified race car goodness, and we don't have to deal with the whole cable thing that was the original Opel component.
Yeah.
So that's good to go. Boom.
Done.
We're going to pull the hood tonight, get it back up on the sawhorses. That way tomorrow we can start taping things off, cleaning things up, and prepping it for paint. Wednesday night. Got the hood cleaned up. It's time to paint it. Do some faux patina. Let's do it. Boom! Faux chrome. Brown. And there's our thin oxidization rust layer that would have been on the factory steel. Gray primer to represent somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s when the car was repainted. Primer. The first of 3 yellows. This one's going to be a light dust coat to represent some of the aged paint that's already been knocked down with a DA. So there's our fog coat of this weird Easter egg yellow. This is kind of a burner color. We basically just wanted there to add some depth to the color. Boom, sun yellow. That is the color that most accurately depicts the color of the car when it's actually sprayed. This is the important one. This will get a full, proper coat. We'll probably use this whole freaking can so that when we get down to this layer, we don't accidentally burn through it a whole lot more than we want to, because this is the color. So let's lay it on. Boom, yellow. So that's that color we're looking for. We're gonna put one more soft coat of a different yellow because this isn't quite perfect. Sunburst yellow. This is basically guide coat. We're going to put a nice thin fog layer on there because somewhere between here and that one is actually the perfect color. Highlighter yellow. Colonial red. And colonial red just to add depth and texture so that it actually burns into the edges a little bit as we start knocking through the layers. It's not supposed to stay, so we do a nice thin coat. Last up, cheap primer gray. Now, the car was actually cheap primer black when we got the car to cover up the faded out red and black paint that was starting to show through some of the yellow. But since none of this should really be there anyways, this is mostly one of those back to adding depth things. Boom! Cheap primer. Last color. Alright guys, Thursday night. After looking at what all we had to actually get done before we can drive this thing, it looks like we're probably going to try and push some of that stuff off until next week when we have a little bit more time and daylight to do it. We're going to want to be driving this thing in the daylight anyways, and that's going to make it so we can back burner having to wire in the lights and everything that aren't integrated into the Miata wiring and aren't hooked up to the Opel wiring anymore. So there's a lot of stuff there that still has to be done, but I think we're going to try and work on that next week so that we can probably drive it on Saturday in the daylight, so if something goes wrong, we can see it. We can actually see what's going on. Cody's gonna go ahead and start working on the faux patina, and hopefully we can get the hood knocked out today so we can put it back on the car, see what it's gonna look like, and basically leave off on that. So let's see what we can get done. There you have it. A few hours later, we have one faux patinaed fiberglass hood. Now, the colors are a little bit different, obviously. We're talking about spray paint from today versus paint from the 70s. They're gonna be different, but we're gonna go ahead and get this on the car. We're gonna lay out the stripes back in where they're supposed to be and dust everything off, clean it up a little bit, and hopefully it'll look pretty good. So, next step, get her on the car. Now we're chasing the original lines that we had to replicate the Steinmetz race cars. We already had the lines on the car, so we're just matching them up with the hood. There it is. Fiberglass L88 Corvette style hood on an Opel GT with a faux patina to match the 50-year-old sheet metal. And it looks pretty friggin' good. Oh, especially the turbo sticking out of it.
And arrow catch latches for the win, kids.
Oh,
show them the thing.
we also went ahead and knocked holes in the back of it so it's a fully functional cowl. So you can get a little more airflow at idle and a lot more airflow in the low pressure zone. Well, technically that'd be high pressure zone, that'd be low pressure zone. So air go in when moving, air come out when sitting still. Cody, what are your thoughts?
Dirty. They're very dirty thoughts.
Dirty thoughts?
Dirty thoughts. Shouldn't go on camera, but this thing's sexy. It's back. It's back to exactly what it was.
I'm pretty aroused. Let's get a side shot here. That looks pretty wicked.
Yeah. Everything involved. Yes. And it looks pretty gnarly from the driver's seat too. The non-existent driver's seat. It looks pretty gnarly. So.
Admittedly, this endeavor was a lot more time than we thought was going to end up invested. But naturally, that's kind of how these things end up. There's a particular look we wanted, there was a particular process that had to be followed, and it took longer than we thought because we had to do it right the first time because there's really no going back on this one. It's right or it's wrong, and these aren't exactly a dime a dozen. They're hard to get.
And it's right.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. But it's right.
So it's right, and I'm happy. You're happy?
Yeah, blown away. Happy. Beyond happy. Yes.
We obviously have a lot of stuff that we got to try and get buttoned up, but we're worried about safety as far as actually being able to take the car out and see drivability and try and drive it on the NA setup. So we got to get some of those other things dealt with. We don't want to rush that for the sake of trying to sneak it into the last of the video. So we'll work on getting the seat mounted, the shifter, and the pedal and all that stuff so that when we take it out next week, hopefully, we're able to take it out safely and see how she runs.
Well, the good news
in the daylight.
Good news is we have all of that stuff. We're not waiting on anything.
That's all for next week, though. This week is over. Wackadoo out.